Hello mathematicians, welcome back. Here's my face. And I've just got it like this so that I can shrink it down later. Sometimes, oh there, it disappears. Great. I wanted to show you something that my sister got for me. This is a cool little box that you can keep gold in. This is where I keep all my gold. And what it has on top is a world timer with all these different hours and all these different places. And what it lets you do is, it falls off sometimes. It lets you figure out the time without actually calculating how far ahead in time or behind in time a different place is. So for example, some of these only have Sydney, they don't have Melbourne. So they don't have every single city in the world. I'll just show you the lid. They only have the main ones. So Sydney, we are actually, if we look at shrink my face, if we look at the Australian map, Sydney and us, even though we're slightly further west than Sydney, we are still in the same time zone. So whatever the time is in Sydney, same time in Melbourne. And that's kind of because when the sun rises, remember the sun hits this side first, when the sun rises, it hits there roughly similar time, so not too different. So that means they can be in the same time zone. Unlike China, where it's the same time over here as it is over here, and so sun is hitting here at 6 a.m. And it's 6 a.m. here, and maybe it's the middle of the night. It's really, really dark. So that's why we have different time zones to match with what the sun is doing. So anyway, we are in Sydney-ish. Let me find Sydney. Here it is. Sydney. And I'm recording this at 8:17. Get out of the way, you microphone. There we go. So let's call that 8 a.m. So I'm going to rotate all the way. Sydney goes to 8 a.m. Okay, there we go. Sydney, 8 a.m. Now, we can see from here that in Tokyo and Seoul, which is in Japan and Korea, South Korea, that it's 7 a.m. And the further round we go, we see that it is earlier and earlier until in Cairo, in Egypt, it's still midnight. Right now, in Egypt, in Cairo, it's midnight. And where are we? This thing is reversed when I see it on the screen, so it's hard for me to see which way it's going. Where's the one I'm looking for? Oh, I can't find it. That's okay, it doesn't matter. I was looking for Delhi. I thought it had Delhi on here. Oh, there it is. Delhi. Yeah, and Delhi is near where I used to... Oh, no, it's Dubai. Whoops, never mind. Oh, no, there it is. I see it. Yeah. Delhi. There we go. So right now, it's 3:30-ish in Delhi. 3:30 a.m. So that means the sun is hitting here. It's bright outside, as you can see by the glow on my face. 8 a.m. here. Sun is coming up. But in Delhi, the sun hasn't come round there yet. So that's why it's so early, 3 a.m. in the morning, the deepest part of your sleep. And what it's like is this, year fives. Let's see if I can get it to move the right way. Sydney is here. As we get later in the day, so you can see Sydney at the top, as we get later in the day and we start to rotate and the time goes up, it's kind of like we are spinning. The sun is hitting right here. Say sunrise is at 8 a.m. roughly, whatever. The sun is hitting right here, and as the world spins, different places come into that sunlight, and then it becomes their morning. That's when they see the sunrise. That's kind of cool, hey? So all these places now rotating around, so the sun, Cairo's now waking up, then Amsterdam, and then, remember I told you about London being the place that it's all measured from? That's GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. That's Greenwich, the place where they measure everything from. And all those places are the sun is hitting them, and as the world spins, more and more places start their day. But of course, if we hit the sun spot earlier, if we hit where the sun is hitting on the earth earlier, then it's now later for us. So as the rest of the world is waking up, what's waking up? Chicago is just waking up. But for us in Sydney, we're now at midnight because our part of the earth has spun all that way around. So there you go. That's pretty cool, hey? There we go. So as the world spins, the sun hits that spot, and we spin and we get there and it's sunrise. but then as we spin, it gets later in the day. But other places then hit that sunrise, and then they start their morning, which is why their time is the earlier time. All right, so I know that's a weird concept, but we are going to press on. Got our map here. The sun hits here first in the east. That's why it's 12 noon, but it's still earlier. The sun hasn't hit there as much yet. So 12 noon, midday, but it hasn't quite got there yet. The sun hasn't quite got to its full strength. That's why we call this 10 a.m. a bit to the west. Okay, so this is what I've been talking about, Year 5. As the world turns, which 5 Australian states or territories are the first to see daylight? So the sun is hitting here first. So which states are the first to see daylight? The first 5. I'm going to use my own strategy and underline the keywords when I choose the right marker. 5 states or territories, the first to see daylight. And we talked about as the world turning, so the sun hits here first. This is where all the rays come. All the rays hit here first. And then the world is spinning this way so that the rays keep hitting here and the world spins, and then these places come under the sun and get their time. All right, so if the light is hitting here, we see that Queensland will hit early. It says states, right? Yeah, good to check. New South Wales, Victoria, and I'll let you look carefully, Year 5, because someone always misses one of the states, and it's very small, and I'll leave you to look. So there we go. And then you say which 2 states or territories see the sunrise next. So after these guys have seen the sunrise, which states are going to see it next? That's the first bit, Year 5. And then this bit is what we're actually going to use our strategy for. And it's not a complicated strategy, but it just takes a little bit of thinking and brain power. Let's go over there. Time zones, MG8. Strategy is, what time is it? You've just got to think, what time is it? And check whether the sun is hitting the place sooner or later. For example, we know the sun is hitting over here. That's where it hits. And so in this Eastern Standard Time, this Eastern one, it's 7 a.m. If the sun is hitting over here, it means it's not hitting over here yet. So it's still more like nighttime when this is more like daytime. So that's why we have a later time over here and an earlier time over here. A later time over here because we got the sun first and we've had it for longer, and then an earlier time over here because they haven't had as much sun, so they're maybe just getting their sunrise when we are having our noon high sun over here. So we know that it goes this time here, for example, 10 a.m., when it's 10 a.m. here, this is an hour and a half ahead because they've already had an hour and a half extra sun. And we have had half an hour more sun than that. So to go from here to here, you actually have, your time goes up an hour and a half. That's why they've got plus 1.5 hours. From 11:30 to 12, we're going to go how much time ahead? We're going to be ahead in time because we've had more sun. So it's actually going to be half an hour ahead because 11:30 to 12. This much space, the sun hits here, and then it only is half an hour later before the same amount of sun hits here. Then it's 1.5 hours later until the same amount of sun hits here. So because this is bigger, it takes longer for the sun to kind of come up enough on it and reach enough of it for the time to be what it is over here when we started. That means if we're going back Year 5s, we are going to be minus half an hour. If we're moving back this way. Sun is here, we've had more of it. Over here, it's earlier, so we haven't had as much yet, which is why it's an earlier time. Haven't had as much sun. And the same for this one down here, Year 5, minus 1.5 hours. I know it's not good to write fractions this way, but that's all I can do on my keyboard. Minus 1.5 hours. This is what I mean by what is the time? Let's calculate using these handy rules. Remember, Year 5s, join the Math Zoom if you have any questions. I know this One is a bit of a brain melter, but join if you have any questions. Now, 7 a.m. in the east, over here in the east, which means we need to figure out, it says show the corresponding times, the matching times across these three Australian standard time zones. So 7 a.m. here, and we're going to go back half an hour because we haven't had as much sun here yet. So in this middle time, the central time, half an hour back from 7 a.m. This is where you've got to really think year 5 and think carefully. What time is it? Half an hour earlier. We're going back in time, half an hour earlier, before 7 a.m. 6:30 a.m. What about going back to Western 1.5 hours earlier? They've got even less sun than these guys because they're further west and the sun hits here first. Minus 1.5 hours. And here's the next bit of the strategy year 5. Take away, sometimes you add the minutes first, then the hours. So if I'm going to minus this, if I've got minus an hour and a half, I'm going to minus the half hour first. So 6:30, half an hour, take off that, that's 6 a.m. Then minus the hour, 5 a.m. Because they've got very little sun over here in the west, whereas here in the east, we've had the sun for longer because the sun hits here first. That's why it's brighter for us and 7 a.m. All right, year 5. Hope that makes sense. Join the Math Zoom anytime. Anytime, join the Math Zoom. And this is the strategy you're going to need for your tracking as well. So let me know any questions and we can work through it. Just remember where the sun hits first, because that lets you know that these guys have the sun for longer, so their time is going to be later in the day, whereas these guys earlier, they haven't had as much sun, it's still dark, so that's why they've got an earlier time. All right, there you go, year 5. I will see you soon, and maybe we can even use this on the Math Zoom, which would be cool. Okay, see you soon on Zoom. Bye.